That though, is it your position that President Trump should not be impeached, even if all the evidence and arguments laid out by the House are accepted as fact?
That's right. When you have somebody who, for example, is indicted for a crime, let's assume you have a lot of evidence, but the grand jury simply indicts for something that's not a crime, and that's what happened here. You have a lot of evidence, disputed evidence, could go both ways, but the vote was to impeach on abuse of power, which is not within the constitutional criteria for impeachment, and obstruction of Congress. Those are both the kinds of things that led Hamilton and Madison, talk about nightmare, to regard that as the greatest nightmare. Number one, giving Congress too much power to allow the president to serve at the will of Congress. And number two, as Hamilton put it, the greatest danger is turning impeachment into a question of who has the most votes in which house, and rather than having a consensus and a broad view of impeachable conduct.
This is one of Trump's impeachment lawyers, Alan Dershowitz, laying out his case to defend the president ahead of the impeachment trial. And right off the bat, Trump's strategy of selecting legal counsel from watching Fox News has proven an unmitigated disaster, considering Dershowitz's argument is fundamentally flawed. Now, Dershowitz claims that Trump can't be impeached for abuse of power because it's not a statutory crime, meaning that it's not a specific violation of the law that anyone could otherwise be convicted of in a regular court of law. He even goes on to invoke Alexander Hamilton in his defense, which makes the fact that Hamilton himself actually wrote the words that completely disprove Dershowitz's argument all the more humiliating. Hamilton wrote that impeachable offenses involve a, quote, abuse or violation of some public trust and are of a nature which may with peculiar propriety be denominated political, as they relate chiefly to injuries done immediately to the society itself. As a result, the impeachable standard of high crimes and misdemeanors didn't by any stretch of the imagination require those acts to be violations of federal statutes, but instead encompasses acts committed by public officials that inflict severe harm on the constitutional order. And just throwing this out there, but I'd assume that running an international extortion scheme wherein you leverage $391 million as a bribe to get a foreign country to hand you dirt on a political opponent probably falls under Hamilton's definition of an abuse of public trust and harming the public order. And this has been repeated even by Republicans in the modern era. Take it from one of Trump's staunchest defenders, Lindsey Graham himself.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic if this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role. Because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
Because as is tradition with today's Republican Party, there's always a clip. And look, it should come as no surprise that Trump's legal team has come stumbling out of the gate, considering these are people known more for appealing to the lowest common denominator on Fox News than actually practicing law. Beyond that, Dershowitz himself has a reputation of defending some of the worst criminals in modern American history. Then you have Ken Starr, who'd been fired from Baylor University amid allegations that the university mishandled sexual assault allegations against football players. In other words, not exactly the optics that the Trump team might be going for ahead of his trial. That being said, it's hardly as if Trump had other options. Besides a few partisan hacks that appear regularly on Fox News, what's the likelihood that other lawyers would be throwing themselves at the chance to defend a guy who released his own summary of a call wherein he proved that a quid pro quo with Ukrainian President Zelensky occurred? The guy who then went on national television and asked China to investigate Biden while his defenders were still busy pretending that he never asked Ukraine to do so. And the guy who got caught locking that call summary in a secure server, who blocked his administration officials from testifying and releasing the documents, prompting yet another article of impeachment unto itself. Unless a law firm wants to recruit solely based on their ability to defend presidents who embroiled themselves in glaringly obvious extortion schemes and sloppy efforts to cover them up, then their best bet is probably to stay as far away from the toxicity that is the Trump administration as is humanly possible. And so what the president is left with is the lawyer who defended O.J. Simpson and Dershowitz, a lawyer specializing in religious liberty cases in Jay Sekulow, a lawyer who, according to Bob Woodward, called Trump a liar in John Dowd, and Ken Starr, who, while prosecuting Clinton, argued against executive privilege, which is Trump's principal defense today. Although given who they're defending, I suppose he should be happy that he got anyone at all.